We've had many versions of Superman over the years, from the comic iterations to TV and movies, and here we are once more with a brand new Man of Steel film that's kicking off the DCU. And folks watching the trailers with a keen eye may notice that this Superman looks a lot lighter, a lot more poppy, a lot more colorful, and a lot more Crypto the dog flying around than the previous DCEU version. There's gonna be a lot of people that love this. There's also gonna be a good chunk of people that hate it. And then there's gonna be folks like me, fence sitters. People so cowardly, they can't decide whether the movie's great or absolute garbage. Or perhaps there's the possibility that this movie's somewhat in between the two. And that's what I want to talk about today in a spoiler-free video for Superman, but I will have a spoiler-filled one down the road in a recap video. So if you wouldn't mind subbing to the show, Adam Does Movies, on either YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or all three, that'd be pretty crazy, but it's also free of charge. And I post movie reviews, commentary, live streams almost every day. It's a great time, and again, it costs you nothing. It's quite the deal over here. What will cost you something is paying to see Superman in the theaters, and it's my job here that I've given to myself to warn you about what you can expect from this movie, give you the lay of the land. What we have from a top level is a 2-hour film. It's PG-13. Good chunk of swearing I noticed in this one. So if you're thinking of taking the little ones out to the film because you see that cute, lovable dog flying around everywhere, just a heads up that there is going to be some S words thrown out, some H words tossed in the mix, and a puzzling amount of racial slurs, which I thought was kind of a bad look for Superman. I thought that was bad form. No, I'm joking. There's none of that. But I just want to let you know, this is not Paw Patrol. So if you are going to take your 5 or 6-year-old out to it, just a warning that there is some swearing and there's a good chunk of violence, which I know, crazy to think for a Superman movie, you definitely needed my insight to hear that before making a purchase. But here's the deal, fam. As a middle-aged man on YouTube with a movie channel, it will be incredibly redundant, not at all unique if you've listened to any other reviews here, for me to say the following. Superman was my most anticipated movie this summer. And so I had some pretty high expectations, not only because it's Superman, not only because it's James Gunn, who has directed some fantastic films over the years, the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, The Suicide Squad, Slither. I mean, his whole catalog is pretty damn good. And also not only because this is kicking off the DCU, but mainly because so many movies that have come out this year have been massive disappointments. And I thought Gunn gets it done. In Gunn we trust. He does not miss a shot. Which, unfortunately, prompts me to say the following statement. Superman is a very fun, very engaging, very good time, and a very big disappointment. Now, before you spring out of your chair, how dare you, sir? This is an outrage. I want to say I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a great time. But with this director at the helm, and this kicking off a brand new franchise, I could not help but feel pretty let down. Now, if you just want to take your family out, plop down like $100, get a couple of those Superman popcorn buckets, and just enjoy the colorful action, get some laughs, and have a bonding experience with the fam, you will not be disappointed. I cannot imagine any young Superman fans going to this and being let down. And I can't imagine families leaving the theater being disappointed. But as a jaded, cynical prick like myself, who demands utter perfection from his films, this one does not achieve the awesomeness I was hoping for. It's a far cry from something like X-Men 2 or even X-Men Days of Future Past. It doesn't have the emotional core that the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy does. It definitely doesn't have the grounded, gritty realism of something like Logan. This 2025 Superman movie is a cartoon for 2 hours. It features a ton of characters. It features a lot of different plots getting threaded throughout. None of them last long or have much of an impact overall. It's a bunch of vignettes that ties together at the end, but really what this is a sandbox for James Gunn to play in. He's got a lot of toys. He's got a lot of action figures. He's got a lot of comic inspiration. He's got a lot of other movies that have come before this, and he wanted to try his hand at it. And for the most part, he succeeds at doing so. But what he fails to do is to elevate the material. Let's talk about the characters for a little bit, all of which I think are fantastic. But most do not live up to their full potential, starting with Superman himself. David Cornsweet plays Clark Kent, aka the Man of Steel, aka Superman. And I think he nails it, friends. I really enjoyed his performance as both characters. And I like that 80% of the time he is Superman. I love that this Superman has a range of emotions. He's passionate, he's sympathetic, he cares, he gets frustrated, he gets angry, but he never loses what makes him so special to begin with and what some would argue is the lamest quality he has. Not me. I enjoy this character. I like that he's optimistic to a fault. I like that he's constantly a symbol of hope, and that's definitely portrayed on the big screen. However, and this is a big however and a big problem I have with this film, the stoicness from the past movies is kind of gone altogether. There is one single shot in this film, and it's in the trailer for a second, where the smoke and the debris kind of blow to the sides, and we see the silhouette of Superman coming into frame. This is framed up very nice. It's a beautiful wide shot, and you get that Superman, that powerful being floating above, and I thought, okay, this is epic. This is what I want to see more of. And I never saw again in the movie, which was unfortunate, because it was a great couple seconds. And this leads me to the biggest issue I have with this film. The Man of Steel does not feel like the Man of Steel. He doesn't get portrayed as this super alien who is massively powerful and can take on basically anything effortlessly. And I understand Gunn is trying to ground the character in a way that we can relate to. I don't really need to relate to him on that level. A lot of people still want to feel like kids when they go to a movie like this. They want to see this epically awesome character kicking a bunch of ass. And unfortunately, the ass kicking goes to pretty much all of the other members of his team. And I'll get to them in a second. It's just after 2 hours of watching my guy on the ground more than he's in the air, getting pummeled, beating after beating, I found myself waiting for one of his other teammates to back his ass up and take care of business, because those characters always get the job done, which also has a weird dichotomy to it, because Superman, the guy you're supposed to be able to rely on, is constantly needing to get bailed out. And the reason he's getting his ass handed to him so much is because Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, has had many years to study the Man of Steel, and he knows exactly how to break him. He knows his weaknesses. He knows how he fights. Oddly, can't figure out he's Clark Kent, but that's fine. And this character is going to use every single opportunity to smear our Superman and make people hate him. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Hoult, so I was excited to see his interpretation of Lex. I dug it. I didn't love it, kind of like the rest of the movie as a whole. It was a fun, watchable time, disposable kind of, and I wish there was more meat on the bones. He's a bit one-dimensional for me, a little too pouty, but he's also extremely unlikable, which makes him a good villain. I mentioned that he's been studying Superman for many years, and that's because this story takes place when we already have everything established. We are in a metropolis riddled with chaos. Not only are there metahumans, superpowered beings all over the place, but there are insane dangers around every corner. So much so that people have become numb to it. They're accustomed to your daily kaiju attack. They're taking photos out on the streets next to it. They're having conversations. They're working while destruction is taking place outside, because they know superheroes are going to show up and save the day with minimal casualty and destruction. And people love Superman for the most part, which is nice to see in a film, him saving the day, interacting with folks on the streets. This is the Man of Steel I really enjoy watching. Hell, at one point he saves a squirrel. This guy cares about life, no matter what type it is. Since metahumans have been established, just with a couple lines of dialogue at the beginning of the film, James Gunn can introduce a bunch of them in his fun fashion, which means a lot of them are sarcastic, kind of douchey. And again, I found myself enjoying them more than the Man of Steel, especially when it came to the action. The favorite standout for me was Mr. Terrific. Every time he showed up with his really calm, collected demeanor, I was all in. He has some of the best action scenes in the film too. And as far as the action goes, there's a whole hell of a lot here. Not only do we have natural disasters taking place, we have giant monster battles, we have a superpowered character fighting off waves of villains, and it all looks really good. James Gunn really went colorful with this movie. People will point out, they'll do still shots and go, look how stupid this character looks in this scene. Look how ridiculously over the top this is. Yeah, that's the point. Now, I'm someone that likes a colorful movie as long as the tone is set and we have an established kind of like world that we're playing in. I'm a big fan of Speed Racer, a movie that was destroyed by critics when it hit theaters years and years ago. It's old now, my God. But the movie holds up because not only is it visually popping at every turn, it's also emotionally driven. And the ending of the movie really wraps things up perfectly. That's what I was hoping I would get with Superman. But as great as Gunn has been in the past when it comes to really pulling at the heartstrings and getting that Pixar level of emotion from people, he kind of drops the ball here. There are so many story arcs that come and go so fast, blink and you'll miss them. One of the big ones being how Superman is treated as a hero, then later people are angry with him. You know the shot in the trailer where he gets a can thrown in his head? That comes out of nowhere so fast. The scene had no time to breathe. 1 minute, everybody's looking up to him. Boom, instantly, so many people turn on him and he's this outcast and people hate him. And I just thought, where's the rest of this? Where's the rest of this story? I needed like 15 more minutes here to kind of lead into this. Then there's the love story angle, Superman and Lois. That's always been a big driving factor to a lot of these films. Rachel Brosnahan plays this new leading lady. Perfect. No notes for her. I really enjoyed her on camera. Her chemistry, the rapport she had with Corin Sweat during their interactions, very well done. Again, on a positive note, James Gunn has been so great at weaving all these different characters in his shows and movies together, like Peacemaker, like the Suicide Squad. This is no exception. You have Superman robots that have fun dialogue. They're a joy to watch. Again, the relationship Superman has with Crypto the dog, which I don't even actually know if they even call him Crypto in the movie. I think he's just Dog for the majority of the film. The Justice League, or as it's referred to in this movie, the Justice Gang. Guy Gardner really wants that to stick. Side note, the whole shtick of Guy Gardner saying, this is the name of our team, and then other people being like, no, that's not gonna land. Pretty sure I just saw that in Thunderbolts. They did the exact same joke a few times over. So that was a little odd. And I think James Gunn maybe even used this joke in past movies. Regardless, I suppose if a joke's not broken, why fix it? James Gunn, who is no stranger to putting his own types of music into a film, does it once more here. This is probably my least favorite of his soundtracks. The music, while fine in these scenes, never elevates it the same way Guardians of the Galaxy did. I had a criticism with Jurassic World Rebirth. I had a million criticisms with that pile of shit, but one of the big ones was, I like showing, not telling. And this movie by James Gunn does the same exact thing that World did at the beginning, which is give us a bunch of text explaining where we're at in his world. This is a fast, cheap way to get us caught up with the character without having to show us any of it, which I found disappointing. I would have liked at least a montage. I would have liked at least a few minutes kind of bringing us up to speed visually instead of just slowly fading words up onto the screen. Lord of the Rings is a great example of doing a combination of both. You have a narration over the top, but you also show the Battle of Middle-earth. It works so much better. It has more impact. And in the instance here of Superman, it would have been a beautiful, easy way to show how powerful this being is. Because when this film fires up, he has stopped a war from taking place by intervening without permission of any government. Bizarrely done off camera, which is very strange considering it is the overall narrative that different plots are going to feed into. How he stopped this war, how it's now percolating under the surface, how he needs to fix the damage he caused. To not see that laid out in front of us was puzzling. Instead, we are thrust right in the middle of a conflict with a character that we are supposed to be introduced to for the first time. I'm also a big stickler with a movie that's starting things out, operating under the assumption that no one knows who any of these people are. We're seeing Superman for the first time in this universe, in this film. You can't cheat. You can't say, oh, obviously everyone knows who Superman is. They've seen comics, they've watched TV shows, they've watched other movies. I can kind of just jump into this without a lot of backstory out of the gates. And I think that's unfair. He will, of course, explain things as the movie goes on. But again, just having an awesome scene right out of the gates, showcasing his power and his potential would have done wonders, I think, narratively to kind of drive this story home further. So if we take the positives and the negatives and smash them together, what we have here is a very fast-moving film, arguably too fast-moving. I could have watched another 2 hours of this thing, and that's a positive. We have a lot of stuff going on. It's not complicated to keep track of, but because there's so much of it, it's hard to focus and connect to one specific thing. We have a huge swath of characters in this. For the most part, I think the casting was done very well. You know what? Outside of Superman's parents. Not really the biggest fan of the country bumpkin, slow-witted duo that these two are. They're mostly played for laughs, and when there is this kind of sage advice from Pa Kent, it falls on deaf ears. This is probably the worst version I've seen of his folks, and sadly, this is probably James Gunn's worst movie. But so far, even the worst entry in a Gunn film is still pretty damn good. And so that's where I'm going to leave Superman 2025. It's good. It's not great. And that's a big bummer for me. I wanted this thing to freaking pop off. I wanted the DCU to start so strong. There was no doubt in my mind that the movies going forward were gonna be amazing. They were gonna be excellent front to back. But that said, we have a good starting foundation and there's definitely room for improvement. There's places to go. We have very strong picks for our leads all around. And so much like we saw with X-Men to X-Men 2, or Spider-Man to Spider-Man 2, or Batman Begins to The Dark Knight, I think we can get an amazing second movie with what we have built up. And that's hopeful for me. That's very hopeful. Just did not hit it out of the park on the first entry. All right, that's all I got for you. Let me know in the comments if you saw this movie already, if you're like me and you really wanted it to work wonders, but instead we're just, it was fun, it was engaging, but it just missed the amazement that we could have had. Let me know. Again, think of subbing to Adam Does Movies on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Like the video if you're on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so future videos show up in your feed. And hopefully I see you next time.